You're watching In the Office. My name is Bray. Let's do some quote learning. Today for episode number 32, I want to cover this idea about a well-placed question. A well-placed question in a moment and a well-placed question for the future. I believe that a well-placed question can do many things for you, none the least of which is get you out of a pinch if you ever are in one. When you start having a discussion with somebody and maybe they have an argument that, let's say, is very emotion-based, there are questions that you can ask them in that moment that they're giving that argument. You can ask them, is this an emotional appeal? Or is this based in facts? You can ask them questions like, by what standard? If they're saying there is no God, well, by what standard? If they're asking you to give to something, you could ask them, why aren't you supporting that with your dollars? That's something that I've come to find. There's so many people that want to be an advocate for something, but rarely put their money where their mouth is. Also, for these people who say that there is no God and that all things are more or less meaningless, why aren't you living it? Why are you trying to gin up some kind of a purpose? If only the rich get rich and the poor get poor and people are oppressed and there's never any justice and there's certainly no afterlife, then why aren't you living it? Why don't you become an aggressor? Why don't you start taking advantage of this one little thing you have to do, which is exploit and pillage until your time is up? Why aren't you living it? Or another good question I like to ask people is, well, can you show me how you come to that conclusion? And if somebody can't take you from point A to point C without getting confused about where it is that they're trying to go, then maybe they're just bloviating. Maybe they're just running at the mouth just to kind of have something to say, to do, to fill some time. A well-placed question can cut through so much of the fat. Now, also, when it comes to setting the net, there are questions that you can ask in advance of a situation that will help you be able to protect yourself. I mean, I wasn't born yet, but of course, being a student of history, I have studied much of the running up to the election of Bush Sr. And when he is in '88, he's at the Republican National Convention, and the question had been floated to him in numerous ways about raising taxes. And this is when he famously said, "Read my lips, no new taxes." And albeit he began working after elected with the opposite party in the House and in the Senate, he ended up coming to what we'll call a compromise, and there were taxes raised on several items. But by asking that question, are you going to raise taxes? And then he ends up saying no, but he ends up doing it. That led to, realistically, in no small part, him losing his re-election bid. Maybe that was a good thing. Maybe he would have become even more moderate and squishy. It's hard to say. History is really hard to tell on those types of issues. Also, when it comes to people saying things on the record, it really helps to have an established record of what they believe and what they say through what they say. Because what happens many times when someone's working in a job, maybe they fall out of love with it. I mean, can you honestly say that if you had someone running a child care facility, that if they suddenly were extremely annoyed by children, that you would want them to keep on going in that position just because they are financially dependent on it? Of course not. You wouldn't want your children to be put in that scenario. Also, for your loved ones that are elderly, if someone's working at a senior care facility and they start being very physical with your loved ones, your senior adults, would you not say it's time for them to go? And even if it's something like working at a machine shop and the person becomes very uncaring, and wouldn't you rather let them go before they lose an appendage to a machine before an accident happens? Of course. And these are questions that you need to have asked these people beforehand. Do you love children? Are you good with children? Do you love senior adults? Are you good with senior adults? Do you pay attention? Do you keep your mind focused? And they say yes, 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 and yes. And then when you see signs that, well, obviously they have changed, Maybe there's hard feelings, maybe there's not, but it's probably time to part. Whether you're arguing in the moment or you need protections in the future for some potential that could come up, you need not ever have a short supply of questions to ask people. I like it when it's just one question that can kind of be the wrecking ball to the scenario. That's why I love the question, by what standard? And if you've done if you're a theologian of any sort, or you're just curious about theology, you've enjoyed that, some of those series of lectures. Again, like when it comes to the question of how are you supporting it, that's a Ray Comfort thing. It's also why aren't you living it? It's another Ray Comfort saying. All of these one-liner questions that can really help you to resolve an issue or to bring it to a close. Because many times, if you figure this out yet, you're not always battling the person that you're talking to. Sometimes you're battling for the hearts and the minds of those who are watching. And that's why you need to make a good, conscientious effort to have a prayerful answer or give a very revealing question to the situation. God's given us a pattern of this for a long time. When he asked Cain, "Where's your brother?" He knew where his brother was. He was dead. But it still helped to ask that question. Or the early apostles, when Ananias and Sapphira come in and said, "Is this the sum of money that you got?" "Yes, yes." Dead. Wife comes in later. "Is this the sum of money you got?" "Yes, yes." Dead. Sometimes asking those direct questions with the foreknowledge of knowing the true answer can really help you set up to win, not maybe the person that you're talking to, but at least the room of people that are gathered. And that can be of even more eternal significance if we're talking in volumes. So if you have a problem that you're dealing with someone else, be thinking about a well thought out, well placed question to ask them, because in the workforce sometimes you can get in trouble for causing a disturbance. But if you're simply asking a question and you do so in love and you do so with a motive of really trying to bring things down from the simmer that they're at, I think you're going to have a breakthrough. But you be thinking on those things, and we'll see you next time.